Okay, so hello and welcome to another episode of the All About Ability podcast. Today we have a Paralympian in the studio, which is the first one for quite a while, and we go way back. Martin Perry, everybody. Now, Martin, there's so many things we can talk about, but I think the best place to start is that you've played table tennis, and you're a guy that plays table tennis with no hands and one leg. So I suppose the first question should be, how is that possible? Like,
I mean, I don't even know. Magic, I guess. It's something that, like, well, first of all, I hate to do this, but I need to correct you. I'm not a Paralympian yet.
all right.
Yet,
Well,
the key word there is yet.
It should be. If he's not a Paralympian, it should be.
So I am a para-athlete, and the only reason I say that is because I've got loads of teammates and I know loads of Paralympians, and they deserve that respect of being called a Paralympian. So my goal is to obviously qualify for Paris 2024 next year. So hopefully, if we do this in a year's time, when I've qualified, you can say, "Oh, this is Martin Perry, the Paralympian." But until then, just para-athlete. But it's that gets thrown around so much. Like soon as you're a high-performing para-athlete, everyone just assumes that you're a Paralympian, and to me that's like saying that your mate down the local running track that can run 100 meters in 11 seconds go, you must be an Olympian. It's like they're not quite there yet, you know what I mean? So it still demands that respect and reputation, but hopefully, as I said, we do this again in 12 to 18 months, you can be like, Martin Perry, the Paralympian, and I'll just like swagger into the studio.
Forgive me, that would have been I think I would have got a lot of heat from the Paralympic community for that. But you say that like you're just a casual person playing table tennis. I think it's fair to say you've competed at a pretty high level.
I've competed at obviously like some high prestigious competitions, like the most notable being in November, just a couple of months ago when I was at the World Championships. And that was my first singles world championships. But even then, I was so lucky to be there. Like I didn't qualify. I just missed out, and I ended up being awarded a wild card. The governing body of the sport obviously deemed my sort of actions throughout the season in terms of like traveling all over the world, competing and doing everything I can to qualify. And I just missed out. So I was like, well, that's it. I'm probably not going to go. But I kept training as if I was going to go, because you never know. Until the wild cards are announced, you never know. So I kept chipping away over the summer, and then I got a phone call from our performance director in the British para table tennis team, and he phoned me and he was like, "Oh, I'm really sorry, like you didn't get in." And I was so deflated, I was gutted. I was like, "Oh, right, okay, so who did?" And he's like, "Nah, I'm only kidding, it's you." And like that roller coaster of emotions in like 10 seconds, like I was like swearing down the phone at him, and he's just sitting laughing away. I was like, "How have you done this to me?" So like to go to the World Championships in November, like I feel very fortunate to have had that opportunity, even though I was banging on the door. But my performance there was fantastic, and I've since then I've gone on to like a new highest world ranking to date for myself. So I'm a bit sort of not nervous to start this season in like 3 weeks' time, but I want to see where I'm at, and I obviously want to prove to myself first and foremost that I deserved to be at the World Championships last year. But I guess back to your first question, how do you play table tennis with no hands and one leg? It was obviously a daft thing to do. Like, why would you want to play that sport with no hands? It just doesn't make sense. So I was at summer camp with Scottish Disability Sport, and they like every sport under the sun that you can think of was there, and I just tried everything. And on the final day, there was table tennis, and I tried holding the bat like between my arms, and it just obviously like didn't work. I couldn't reach anything. I was really restricted. So we ended up, the only way I can describe it was like a tea towel that had Velcro on it. So it was like this long piece of cloth, as I said, like the size of a tea towel, and we wrapped it around my arm so it created like a sleeve. And then we slid the bat down the sleeve and strapped it in place with Velcro. And that meant I could just play with one arm, which obviously helped massively. I could hit the ball. I had a bit of natural hand-eye coordination, but I was dreadful, like absolutely dreadful. I just loved it. Like, it was so much fun. And sort of things slowly progressed from there. I found a local club, being Drumchapel Table Tennis Club, and I started going there twice a week. So that's the nights that they run, was a Tuesday and Thursday, and it was just fun. I thought, this is just a fun game. And then I witnessed the London 2012 Paralympics, and I was like, wow, these guys are just like me, and they're got the whole world captivated and they're playing at the highest level. I want to do that. Like, how do I kick on? How do I be like these guys? How do I emulate them? You know, because I saw the guys that are now my teammates. I saw them win medals that day, and I was just like, that's ridiculous. Like, how can they play this sport to that level with that disability? And I hate the cliche, but it inspired me. It did. And, you know, so I just wanted to emulate these guys. So I went to the Westmark clinic in Glasgow, and I was like, I need a table tennis arm. I don't know how you're going to do it. I don't care. Like, just get it done. Like, I need a table tennis arm. And they made an arm that's molded to my right forearm, and it's got a table tennis bat on the end of it. And like, it's so primitive and basic. It's just like a soft cast that you would get if you broke, like if you broke a bone, like if you broke your arm, broke your leg, you get put in a cast or a stookie if you're from here. Do you know what I mean? Like, and it's that, but it's just soft. So it's actually quite comfortable to wear, and it's literally just got a table tennis bat like glued onto the end of it, and I just hurl myself around the court trying to catch a ball, basically.
Wow, I mean, where do you go from that? That was one of the best answers I've ever had in a podcast.
It's probably about 3 minutes too long as well.
I'm trying to decipher where to go next from there, because it was really interesting what you said about the Paralympics there, because one of the themes of this podcast has been the last sort of couple of months when I've had guests on with disabilities is the fact that we talk about role models and who you had to look up to inspire to be type of thing. And hearing you talk about the Paralympics in that way is just such a eye-opening thing of how big an event that actually is and what an impact it can have. So when I've spoke about the Paralympics before, one of the things that I kind of mentioned is the fact that seems to be, obviously it gets a lot of viewership, gets more viewership than people would think, in terms of even sometimes more so than the actual Olympics itself. So I guess my question is, why do you think, what do we need to be doing to get more coverage in the other events out with the Paralympics? Because of the fact that, you know, all this mainstream attention on the one event, but you're training all year round, like you say. All these athletes are training all year round, and yet they kind of go back in like order almost and come back out for the Paralympics. Why is that?
I wish I knew the answer to that, but you're absolutely right. Like, especially with a sport that's not mainstream like table tennis, you know, we become showcase ponies every 4 years, and people go, oh look, there's para table tennis, and those guys are amazing. But as you said, we train every single day, we compete all year round. It's not as if we hide for 4 years and then turn up and go, all right, fancy putting us on the telly. Like, it's we do it every day. But I think it's, you know, it's probably a question I can't even answer, but like, how do you grow a niche market? You've got to get the right investors, you've got to get people hooked, and you've got to make it interesting for folk. You know, and table tennis as a sport in general has tried that. You know, not so long ago, we changed the rules. I say not so long ago, it's been longer than I've been playing, but in terms of the sport as a whole, we changed the rules. So everyone I talk to goes, oh, table tennis, you play up to 21. It's like, that's been out of the game for a long time. So they changed it to 11. They changed the size of the balls, things like that, just to make it more viable for television, essentially. So now the latest trend is like, well, we'll change the colours of the rubber. You know, so a table tennis bat is always red and black, and it will always be red and black for me. I'm not buying into this fancy coloured rubbers nonsense. But to attract like the layman, so to speak, you can now get like purple rubbers, blue rubbers, green rubbers. So it's just like, oh, we'll make it cool and look flashy, but it's not like, that's not going to attract folk to play your sport. That's like saying, oh, you can go and pick any colour of football boots you want. Like, no one actually cares. Like, they're just going to pick the one that their favourite player uses. So you know, it doesn't actually make a difference. But I suppose, how do we make it so that we're not just, you know, these showcase ponies that are rolled out every 4 years and at the Paralympics? I guess it's just talking about it. You know, like being here talking about like table tennis of all things, for me, is fantastic. You know, if as many folks see this as they can, then brilliant. If one of them goes and picks up a bat that they've never done it before, job done. Like, that's my job complete for today. Do you know what I mean? If I can get someone interested in table tennis, and my wife hates it because like I always talk about table tennis. She's like, you need new patter. Like, you're boring me. Like, last night we were at an event, the launch of the Edinburgh Street Food Festival, and like, so everyone kept coming up to, oh, so do you play table tennis as well? She's like, no, I hate the sport. Like, I can't stand it. He doesn't shut up about it. Like, I come home and he's watching it on YouTube. Like, like don't want to talk about it. And I'm like, well, you're not really helping the case there, because I need to talk about it, because if I don't, no one will. And then I don't spread the word of the sport. And then, as you said, like, it just goes back to having every 4 years, we play table tennis. But whereas actually, like, in November just there, I was at the World Championships. Do you know what I mean? Like that was a huge achievement for me, and I was like so proud of myself to be there representing Great Britain at the World Championships. But essentially, like, no one really cares, you know, and that's okay. Like, that's fine. We are in a niche sport, and it's an obscure sport. And, you know, I don't sit there and go, no one cares about like what I'm doing, because I love it. Like, I think it's the best job in the world. I get to travel absolutely everywhere. Like, I've been to countries that I just wouldn't even have dreamed of going to as a kid. And the fact that I've done that because of table tennis being my job is amazing. Like, so the fact that no one really looks at it until the Paralympic Games, that's not a problem that I'm going to solve, but I can try my best by talking about it and just saying that, look, this sport is fantastic. It's so accessible. Like, literally anyone can play. We've got a guy that plays with his mouth. He puts the bat in his mouth, and he's been to like 3 Paralympic Games. You know what I mean? Like, it's so accessible. And I think as soon as people start playing it, they get hooked on it because it is so much fun. But the problem is that it's just not mainstream. It's not your football. It's not your rugby. You know, it's just difficult kicking it off in this country. Like, we've got good numbers, but like anything, it could be better. You know, so it's how do we get more eyes on it? Just talk about it more. Like, go to your local club, play. Like, everyone's always, I'm not very good. Like, you will not believe me when I tell you how bad I was in the beginning. Like, it took me years to even actually string a rally together, and even now I'm still clutching at straws. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, just play. It's just so much fun. Like, and I think that's the main thing is just realizing how much fun it can be, because you don't have to go and compete at the World Championships and the Paralympic Games. You just need to play sport. Like, the benefits of sport to your mental health, to just obviously your physical health, but like it's to no end. Like, I can have the worst day ever and then go to training and be like, it's all right. And even if I have a bad day at training, I still feel better about myself for going because I've got up and done something. So, like, the benefits of sport, just do it. Pick up a bat, go for a walk, go for a run. If you're in a chair, like, there's obviously power chair football, you know, boccia, things like that. There's, like, sport is accessible for everyone. Folks just don't have the mindset to go and find it. So yeah, I've been off on a tangent there, and essentially, I don't know how we get more eyes on it unless we're talking about it, unless we promote the sport.
Well, you make it really easy for me, because I've got so many areas I can dive down here, right? I mean, based on, it was a very interesting point you made earlier on about, you know, how nobody really cares about the boots somebody's wearing, they care more about the actual athlete themselves. And I found that one of the bigger reasons why sports, like disability sport, is been so difficult to promote is that our athletes, individual athletes, we need to get our stories out there. And, you know, that's what draws. Like, you could argue, to use football as a like mainstream example, right? Like, your Messis and Ronaldos of the world are actually bigger, you know, as individuals than most clubs in terms of shirt sales and things like that. And I'm not saying that we're Messi and Ronaldo, right? But the point is that, you know, you get your story out there, and you get people to connect with it, and, you know, people listen to this and go, I didn't know that you could play table tennis with no hands. You know what I mean? That's amazing. And I didn't know you could play football in a wheelchair. This kind of thing, and what we've came through to be here, and how that connects to people, I think is a kind of key in trying to elevate the sport. Because I think when you look at sports as a whole, right, they just have a tendency to put us on the same bracket. Yeah. Or, like, you know, it's just like, they're all, look at this, like, very kind of cliche, happy-go-lucky group of people. Like, that's so nice that they're out playing together, but there's a real competitive drive behind us all, wanting to do something, wanting to elevate this so that it's there for the next generation. And so there's a lot of different areas, but like you say, it's just about getting the word out there. And I think that comes back to a lot of the reason why there's so much stigma with disability is the fact that we're not actually seen. You know what I mean? We're not in the public eye. Like, if somebody sees me going down the street, they're like, there's somebody like, your eye just automatically just sees it and goes, a lot of people look at you like you're kind of an alien, because they've never really seen that before. And so, how do people react like when you tell them that you play table tennis and they don't know anything about it? They're just like,
see, it's a bit of a mixed bag. And so when folks say to me like, oh, so what do you do for a living? I say, I'm a professional table tennis player. I always get the same response. It's like, yeah, but what's your job? And I'm like, no, that is my job. But I don't know if that's because of my disability, because I genuinely believe, like, especially after the Paralympic Games, from London, Rio, and then Tokyo, like the advocacy for being disabled in this country has gone through the roof. Like, people, like, it seems to be year on year, don't really care if you're disabled. Like, they just want to get to know you as a person. So that's fantastic. But when I say, obviously, I'm a professional table tennis player, it's always, yeah, but what's your job? Like, how do you pay the bills? And I'm like, no, I'm a professional table tennis player. That is my job. Like, oh, I never knew you could do that. And they never say much more than that. But I'm like, did you never think I could do that because I've got no hands? Or did you not think I could do that because it's table tennis? You know what I mean? Because like, people don't assume there's professional table tennis players, really. But I guess they don't, especially not in this country, where we have obviously fantastic players from the UK that are inside, top like 100 in the world, able-bodied. But I guess they just don't assume that they're professional athletes. They maybe just, maybe he's a banker and he trains in the evening after his shift. You know what I mean? Something like that. So I never know if, like, when I say to folk, professional table tennis player, do they believe that do they not believe it because of the disability, or do they not believe it because of the sport that I'm in? So that's a bit of a tricky one. But yeah, it's just one of those things that, folk just laugh at me and they kind of look at me and be like, but you've got no hands. And I'm usually wearing, like today, like I'm wearing jeans or whatever because we live in Scotland and it's cold. So I'm always like wearing jeans or trousers. Unless I'm flying, then I'm always wearing shorts because then I get to skip every single cue because they see the fake leg and they're like, yeah, you can go to the front. Love it. But up until that point, like, I go, oh, I've got one leg as well. And like, how do you play table tennis with one leg and no hands? I'm like, I don't know. Just try really hard, I guess. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, if there's a will, there's a way in it.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what I said earlier. Like, every sport is accessible. You just need to find out how to make it accessible. And now, almost every sport out there has like a disabled or para wing to it. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's there for a reason, because ultimately sport needs to grow as a whole. And now sports that aren't in the Paralympic Games are starting to like prick up their ears and be like, this could actually really benefit us. And sadly, it's probably going to benefit them financially. And that's maybe why they're looking at it. Because if the sport grows and gets into the Paralympic Games, it will get more funding on the back end for private sponsors. But I don't care. If disabled people are playing sport, I don't care. Get them playing. Like, it's changed my life to no end, chasing a little white ball around a table. Do you know what I mean? Like, I can't even begin to explain the difference it's made in my life. So yeah, to say that I'm a professional table tennis player, I don't care if people believe me, because it's true. And the things it's done for me is just amazing.
That is amazing, mate. I want to go more into that. And I want to go more into the World Championships as well. But before I do it, I'll end up forgetting about this, right? So we were talking about how table tennis maybe isn't the most mainstream sport in terms of people knowing about it, being aware of it. That made me think, I was thinking about this on the way here and thinking about last night, like how, so for those that don't know, we used to play football together, right? Which feels like a million years ago now, doesn't it?
It was a long time ago. A long time ago.
And it's mad to think, because back then I would never have thought we'd be sitting doing this. It's crazy how life comes together like that. But, one of the things that I remember, and for those that maybe don't know, I used to play football and goals on my knees off the chair. Martin can attest to the fact that I thought I was pretty decent. back in the day, like I always say, people ask me about that, and I think I was quite good, and then I was like, but then I wanted to know, I got no way of proving it. There was no videos of that taken.
Yeah, so, but you're like surprisingly mobile for being on your knees. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's not as if you were just a lump in the middle of the goals. Like, you could actually move. Like, it was quite impressive. And obviously we played on, it was 7-a-side, so it was 7-a-side nets. So like, unless someone's absolutely rocketing at top bins, you're a good fair chance of getting there. Do you know what I mean? Like, you didn't get, like, folk go, oh, he's on his knees, he's probably just pepper shots at him and you'll be fine. Like, you got there. Do you know what I mean? So unless it was top bins, like, you'd just as chance as anyone to save it. So yeah, unless it was me shooting, then you had no chance.
You had a good day on you, man. There's no doubt about that. There's no doubt about that. I'm so glad this is on record now, because people know. People can say that I'm not like a barcast or something. I can save a shot, right? So I'm glad we got to say that, because there'll probably be no other guest I have on the podcast that's able to attest to that. But going back to you, I remember specifically there was times where we would be playing football, and in the dressing room we had what you would call your traditional sort of testosterone dressing room, from what I can remember. Especially at the time I was like 14 or something like that, so it was quite like, wow, what is this? I'm not really, I was a young boy and I dressed with big men, and I just didn't really know what to make of it. But I remember like how when you started playing table tennis, and there would be like jokes about
I got so much stick. I got so much stick for playing table tennis. Like, and I still get stick for playing table tennis, like mainly from my wife. I'm kidding on, but no, I remember like we'd been, and there was another guy that played with us, Kevin, at the time, and he'd started playing table tennis before me, but then he chucked it, and I thought, no, I really enjoy it. I'm going to stick at it. But I remember I just said like we'd go and play games at the weekend, and we were in the dressing room and be like, oh, you still playing that nonsense during the week? And I'm like, yeah. Quite enjoying it. Like, it's good fun, and I think that happens regardless. Like, I could have started doing absolutely anything outside of football, and I'd have got stick for it. That's just the way it goes. Like, your mates are gonna take the mick out of you for absolutely everything and anything because they're your mates and they're entitled to do that. Do you know what I mean? But it was one of those things that, see, looking back on, I was like so oblivious to the fact that obviously I could have went on and did more with table tennis, and obviously I have. I was like, I'm just playing for fun, and my mates are digging me for it because that's what they do. And now, like, a few of those guys, like, they'll still message me and be like, look, I just saw you've won this medal, that medal. Well done, mate. Like, good on you. Like, as you said, I remember playing football with you and you started off, and like, it's so nice to see how far you've come now. So I don't think it ever came from a bad place. Like, there was never any malice in it. As I said, your mates are always going to absolutely dig you. Like, you arrived here 10 minutes late, and the first thing I did was tap my watch. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's just, it's going to happen. Like, as you said, like, you're in a dressing room environment. It's testosterone fueled as it is. Thankfully for me, there was never any malice in it. But that I can understand where you're coming from. Like, how do you take these things being a young kid? Because you said you were 14, I'd have been about 18 at the time. But you were probably one of the youngest in the team. It was a para team for those that don't know. So there was no like age group. So we had yourself at like 14, and we had guys like in their 40s. Like, so as you can imagine, that's so diverse and different upbringings and vastly different disabilities. But what I remember most, and I've found obviously going into table tennis and being around, guys that have played multiple sports, and as soon as you get a group of disabled people together, it becomes a pissing contest of who's more disabled. And I love it. Like, I absolutely love it, because especially like if we're on a plane and we just start like absolutely digging each other about each other's disability and about like, oh, you can't do this and you can't do that, like, the general public get absolutely mortified. And it brings me nothing but joy. Like, I remember we were flying off to, I think it was like the Italian Open, and one of my teammates, Meg, she's in a chair. So she obviously has to use an aisle chair to get on the plane. So the staff are like wheeling her down the plane, and the plane was delayed, but it wasn't because we had 4 wheelchair users on it. The plane was delayed because we're flying out of bloody Gatwick, and it's always delayed. So I was just sitting at the back, like looking at my watch, huffing and puffing. And I was like, oh my goodness, I can't believe they let people like this on a plane. Like, this is taking up so much of my time. And I said it so loud, and I swear to God, like half the plane just turned around and just glared at me. And I was like, but even Meg, she turned around, she was like, oh my, like, who said that? And it was me just chuckling at the back. She's like, I hate you. She's like, I absolutely hate you. And I was like, I know. And she's like, I can't believe they let people like you on the plane. And I was like, people like what? And she was like, bald.
There you go.
Wow. Okay.
Oh, I mean,
do you know what I mean? So it just like, as soon as you put a group of disabled people together, it's just a pissing contest. Like, I've had teammates that have like taken my leg off me and just like flung it away. And I'm like, cool. Well, I guess I'm not walking today. You know what I mean? Like, it just becomes like an absolute, like, no holds barred. I'm going to take the piss out of you because you're disabled. And I love it. It's brilliant.
It's great because like no one does that for us. Like, everybody's so tiptoe around at times like that.
Yeah, like, so honestly, not 1 week goes by and my wife Siobhan, she'll be like, see, if someone heard me say that to you, like, they'd lock me up. I'm like, yeah, I know. but it's brilliant. Like, so she doesn't care that, obviously, she doesn't care that I'm disabled. She loves me for me, all that nonsense, right? But she doesn't care that I'm disabled, so she absolutely digs me just as much as like my friends do, because she's entitled to do that, because she has to put up with me 24/7. Do you know what I mean? And I think that's a place where disability is slowly moving towards in this country. You know, that we can take the mick out of each other and there is no malice behind it. But even from like an able-bodied point of view, like, so I've been in shops like with my brothers or whatever, and they'll just obviously be ripping me for my disability, because they're like, gonna hurry up and like pack the bags or whatever, like, you're so slow, you've got no hands. And the cashier's like, oh, you can't say that, like, what are you doing? It's like, shut up, that's my brother, I've known him for 28 years, like, he's fine. You know what I mean? And that's a place where disability needs to be at. The fact that we can just like acknowledge it as everyday life, and not like, as you said, tiptoeing around it like, oh, he's in a wheelchair, oh, he's got no hands. It's, who cares? Like, let them live their life. Like, what does it matter? Do you know what I mean? Like, you're sitting here rocking an absolute amazing podcast, incredible setup, but what's that got to do with you being in a wheelchair? Whereas people go, oh, that's nice. You still get that? You still get like, oh, that's nice. Like, I get that all the time, like, oh, that's nice. I'm like, what do you mean? Like, just shut up. Do you know what I mean? It's so patronising. It's so or because obviously I've spent a lot of time in England. I lived in Sheffield for 5 years, and they were like, oh, bless. I've not even said hello to you. Like, you've just seen me with a disability and go, oh, bless. What? Like, just like disregard the disability completely. And I think, as I said, it's a place that this country is moving towards. And we've always been quite positive around disability, but we needed London 2012 to kick it on in this country.
So the sponsor for this episode is Lab Solutions, who are a property maintenance company that's actually run by my brother. And listen, I might be a better looking than him, but he's a great guy. And you should go and check out everything he does, because he's one of the hardest working people I know. And I'm always making sure that anyone that sponsors this podcast has the same intentions as me and is coming from a good place. And he definitely is one of the hardest workers I know. He will take care of everything you need, just in all those type of areas. And I just want you to make sure that go and check him out. Make sure that anything you contact Michael about, he'll be sure to help you and give you the best service that you need.
You know, and the fact that like it's just moving on year after year. And as you said, like when the cameras roll out onto the Paralympic Games, this country goes through another evolution of just being more and more accepting and just amazing with people with disabilities, because we stop seeing the disability, you know. But the only thing is, like, there always seems to be that grace period of like the build up to the Paralympic Games, and then sort of like 6 months before, 6 months after, like everyone with a disability, like they're treated as like immortal demigods in the public eye. Like, oh my God, you're so amazing, you're so inspiring. And then I don't like that bit of it, because that's a little bit patronising. But then like after that, there's always a shift in the culture back to being like, oh, that's nice. Like, don't see the disability, just see the person. Like, if you see a guy in a wheelchair or a guy like myself, like, talk to me as a person. Don't talk to me as if I'm like gonna give you some sort of contagious disease. Do you know what I mean? So
100%. I'm listening to that and being like, you should just host this from now on, man. I might just have to retire.
I'm just gonna walk in, put my cap on it. This is my show.
We're gonna just have Martin take this over from now on. He knows what he's talking about. But it's so true, because, you know, I think there's this idea that like every day that we wake up, the first thing we think is, oh, I'm still disabled today. It's tough, isn't it? Like, it's not a reoccurring thought in our heads every day. Like, we just live our life.
Yeah.
People come up to you and be like, oh, see if I was in your position.
Oh, I hate that. It's like, I don't know what I'd do if I had no hands. It's like, well, I don't know what I would do with hands. Do you know what I mean? Like, I've never had them. So like, if I woke up tomorrow and had hands, I would be as upset and as terrified as if you woke up tomorrow and didn't have hands. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's not as if, as you said, I don't wake up in the morning and go, oh, yep, another day with no hands. Like, I get up and go, have I got coffee beans in the machine? Yes, good, turn it on, life's going to be good. Because if I don't have coffee, then there's an issue. Like, that's what I think about most when I get up. Like, I get up in the middle of the night to go for a pee like anyone else. The only difference is I have to put my leg on first to go and do that. You know what I mean? Like, but I don't think about it. I just do it. You know, it's not, as you said, it's like I don't wake up and go, oh, another day's been disabled. Don't get me wrong, everyone gets bad days and everyone has negative thoughts, but I don't ever remember a time it being around my disability, ever. Like, I'm 28 now, and in all those years, I don't remember once being like, fuck, I'm disabled.
Yeah.
Like, not in a serious way anyway. I might do it as a joke with my mates, like, oh, can you pass me that? Why? Oh, I can't reach it, I've got no hands. Like, things like that, but I've never woke up and been like, oh, another day is being a guy with a disability. Like, it's never even crossed my mind. But I guess, like, so people always ask me like what it's like being like me, and for me, I find it really, really lucky that I was born this way. You know, the fact that I've never had hands, I've never had two legs, so that in itself is a gift, because I've only had one way of doing things. So I've just had to learn, get up, get on with it, just like everyone else. Like, you know, anyone that's able-bodied has just, you know, they just learned as a kid. They learned how to, you know, do everything that their parents showed them and went to school just like everyone else. That's all I had to do. So for me, that's so fortunate and so lucky that I was born like this, because I can't imagine what it'd be like going through a traumatic accident, injury, disease, you know, like something like cancer or something like that, like a tumour that's, you know, it resulted in me losing my arms, or like sepsis or meningitis, you know, something that causes people to end up like me. I can't imagine what that'd be like, and it must be so terrifying and scary, and it must be incredibly hard to deal with. But I consider myself extremely lucky that I was born with no hands and one leg, because I've just had to get on with it. Like, there's no two ways about it. You know, and as you said, people come up to you and go, oh, I don't know how I'd do it. I don't know how I'd do it either. Like, you just have to. Like, you just get on with it. Like, there's no two ways about it. You know, people go, I'd probably just sit in the house and feel sorry for myself. It's like, you absolutely would not, because within about 10 minutes, you'd be bored shitless. Like, you'd just be like, I'm done. You know what I mean? There's only so much Netflix you can watch. Like, so people, I understand where you're coming from. Like, people say things and it comes from a good place. That they're trying to say, oh, you're a really strong individual, you're working incredibly hard and things like that. But it never comes across like that, no matter how sincere someone says it. Like, oh, I don't know what I'd do if I was in your position. It's like, I do. You'd get on with it, because there's no two ways about it. You just have to.
Definitely, man. I mean, see, the thing is, as well, is listening to you talk about that, it took me quite a while to get, I think it's all about how you see things, right? Your own perception of things and your outlook. And if your outlook is being grateful for what you have rather than what you don't have, then you always win at life, regardless of what your circumstances. There's people that have everything you could ever dream of, and they're sad. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. Like, there's what's the old one? It's like, oh, I'd rather cry in my Lamborghini than be happy in like my Ford, or some nonsense like that. It's like, well, would you rather sit and cry and be depressed and upset, or would you be happy with what you've got? Like, you know what I mean? But you hear all these millionaires, billionaires and influencers, all that nonsense, be like, oh, you know, I had a really bad day, and everyone goes, oh, what are you moaning about? Like, they've got all the money in the world. Like, footballers get it in the neck so much, you know, like, oh, because they're living everyone's dream. They get to play football all day, and they get paid, you know, hundreds of thousands of pounds at a top level. Oh, what's he get the right to moan about? He's got just as much right as everyone else. Like, we're people. You know what I mean? So the fact that, you know, like, they just because they earn loads of money doesn't mean that they don't value the same things we value. You know, and as you said, it's being grateful for what you've got. Like, if he's got a Gucci sweatshirt and I've got a Primark one, like, what's the difference between us? Like, why can't we be friends? Why can't we have a relationship and chat to each other and, you know, go out for coffee? Because we can both be grateful for the fact that, like, we can bond, for example, over good coffee taste and things like that. You know what I mean? So it's, as you said, it's like, it's being grateful for what you've got, and it's just, you know, it's just making sure that people understand that, yes, there's always going to be someone with more money and the grass is always greener. They've got the same problems as you. Like, they've got the exact same problems. They've just got a bit more cash in the bank. Good on them. They've probably worked really hard for it.
I mean, we're all human at the end of the day. That's it, and it's a matter of acknowledging the fact that we all go through these things. Everybody goes through these things. That's one of the big reasons why I do this podcast, is to show that you can have two people that have been through two totally different scenarios, but we've felt the same emotions at some point in our life. And as you're talking about the way that you talk about disability and the way that you live your life, you know, for me, it took a while to get here, this point where I can see it in a positive light, and I can see that, you know, a lot of things that I once felt bad about were because of what I was being told and how, you know, I believed the things around me, but I believed in myself, type of thing. And it took me a while to see it the way that I see it now. But for you, as you just said there, like, you seem to have maintained this really strong outlook in the way that you see things, and it got me wondering, like, where does that mindset come from for you?
I don't know. Like, I wish I had an answer for that. I really don't. I don't know if it's from like growing up with my family and my three older brothers, Paul, Thomas, and Jamie. If you know, the fact that they never really cared about my disability, not in a bad way, like not as if they were like, oh, like who's disabled. Like they just, like, I was one of the brothers. Like they didn't care. Like if anything, they tried to use it to their advantage. Like when we were growing up playing football, Martin, you go in goals. Like it was probably because I had no hands, and they thought, oh, I'm not going to catch the ball. That just made me more determined to catch the ball and to stop them scoring. But that was just four brothers playing football in the park. Like it wasn't like a disability day out. Do you know what I mean? It was like, go out and play because you're young and that's what you do. So I don't know if it's came from that, the fact that they just like disregarded the disability. Don't get me wrong, if anyone said anything to me growing up, like they absolutely annihilated them. Like my brothers defended me to no end, which was great, I guess, because like most families, it's only your family that can take the mick out of you. Do you know what I mean? Like no matter if it's disability or anything like that, like it's only your family that get to say certain things about you. And that was like my brothers growing up. They just like, they could give me all the digs they wanted. They could, you know, take the mick out of me. But if anyone else tried it, it wasn't on. So I don't know if it came from that, the fact that, you know, they just disregarded and in a sense didn't care that I was disabled. I was just one of the boys. You know, we just played football together. We grew up together. That's what we did. They never cared really. So I don't know if like my mindsets maybe came from that I've never even been allowed to, for want of a better phrase, like I've never been allowed to see my disability. Do you know what I mean? Like obviously if I look down, I'm like, oh shit, yeah, they're gone. But I've never really been allowed to think any other way. Like they never wrapped me up in cotton wool. They never mollycoddled me. Like they just treated me like three older brothers would treat the youngest, as I'm sure you can imagine. Absolute carnage. Like, but that was it. And it's the same with my cousins, and you know, we've got a really big family. Like it was just like no one cared. Like no one ever tiptoed around my disability. So I guess maybe I owe a lot of it to my family, just for want of a better phrase, just like not caring. Obviously they love me and care about me, but they never cared that I was disabled. So yeah, I guess it's probably just down to them.
No, that's class. It's, I think we're very similar in that regard, because I've got three older brothers and one younger one. And we always, and they shoved me in goals as well. So there you go. That's how we're the same origin story really. And I think that it goes to show you though, if people just see you for who you are and not your disability, then it can change the perception of everything. It's particularly your own mind, you know. And you've obviously done really well. I want to kind of go shift it back to table tennis and going to the World Championships, which is, I mean, being a wild card in the World Championships, first of all, you must have been really motivated for that. But it made me think about the fact that for power chair football, me and you have similar ideas of how much, you know, I train really hard for power chair football every day, and I've got a big game tomorrow actually. It's one of the reasons why I really wanted to do this today was to take my mind off that a wee bit, because I'm going off, this is a big game tomorrow. So it made me think, you know, when you get that call to say that you're going to the World Championships, what is your, first of all, how do you like mentally deal with that pressure? And then going from that, what is your preparation like in terms of your training routine, what you're eating, things like that?
Yeah, so obviously I said earlier, when I got that call, I was initially told that I wasn't going. Like I was put on that emotional roller coaster straight away that you're not going. Only kidding. Yes, you are. Like, wow, unbelievable, amazing. I was actually at training when I got the call, so I knew I was waiting on it, and everybody in the hall knew I was waiting on that call. So as soon as my phone lit up, like the whole hall froze, because there's never, like, you're never got your phone down by the table. Like, it's just a no-no. Like, you wouldn't take your phone onto the pitch. Do you know what I mean? Like, you just don't do it. But mine was there for the obvious reason that I'm waiting for this phone call. Like, yes or no, you're in. And so the phone rang, and I've took like the arm off, ran up and back room, so it's quiet. And I've answered it. Obviously, I've went through that emotional roller coaster, and I was like, right, I've just been put through that emotional roller coaster. I'm going to do that to everyone in this hall. So I like tried to keep a straight face, like walking down there. Obviously, inside, like I am absolutely screaming, but like as I was walking down there, I was like chewing the inside of my mouth, just like trying not to smile. I was like, don't give it away, don't give it away. And like the whole hall stopped and like looked up at me, because like where we train in Drumchapel, like the hall is on a lower level to like the viewing gallery. So it's like a kind of canteen sitting area. So you have to go down a few steps. And like, so there's like a few steps and a ramp either side. So like you have to go down to get into the hall. And so like I'm walking down the steps and everyone's just like eyes wide open looking at me. And I was like, oh. And as soon as I sighed, like all the heads went down. They're like, oh, Mari, I'm so sorry. I was like, I'm in. And like the whole place erupted. And it was just, it was the best feeling ever. And to say that is probably one of the worst training sessions I've ever had would be like nothing short of the truth, because I was just like, I was over emotional. I was too excited the fact that I was going. So like, fair enough. Like, it's very understandable that I'd played terrible that night, because obviously my mind was elsewhere. I was going to the World Championships. I couldn't believe it. But after that, you know, the emotions settled pretty quickly, because at the end of the day, I had a job to do. You know, as I said, it's an absolute privilege saying that I get to be a professional table tennis player and get paid to play all over the world, but I'm there to do my job, you know. So I had to obviously rein in the emotion and be like, right, I need to prepare. But nothing changed. I'd been preparing the whole summer as if there's a chance I might go, I might get a wild card. It's unlikely, but I might. So I'd always been training as if, you know, because even if, say I didn't get a wild card, it was in November. The season starts in 3 weeks' time. That's only like 2.5 months difference. So what's the difference of me missing a week-long tournament? There's not much. I still need to keep training. So, you know, I got back to it and I was like, right, the status quo. Like, I need to just train as if it's every other tournament. The thing that I worked on most though was that I sat down with a sports psychologist and the coaching staff as well, but mainly the psychologist, and was like, look, I need to ensure that, one, I enjoy this experience. I don't want to go to the World Championships and throw my toys out the pram if I don't win, if I don't win a medal, or if I, you know, lose to this guy and such and such. I'm at the World Championships and I need to enjoy it. And that was my main message to myself. And working with a sports psychologist, we really enforced that. And the other one was just play free, you know, because the way I saw it was, I didn't qualify and I got the wild card, so I was really, really lucky to be there. So I was like, just play free, just enjoy it and play free. Like, there's no pressure on you. If you bomb out in the first round, you bomb out in the first round. You were lucky to be there anyway. If you go on and win it, well done you, kid, because, you know, you were fortunate enough to get a wild card. So for me, that was the two things, was just, you know, make sure that nothing changes, stays the same, and that I'm just able to go and enjoy it and play free with no pressure. And to be honest, well, I had a great performance. I ended up coming home with a bronze medal. And like, it's on my social media, if you watch the post about when I win it, like, the emotion is just so raw. And I actually remember, like, when I was sitting there, like, standing there screaming on the court that I'd won it, I actually nearly fell over. And you can't really see it in the video, but I nearly fell over because my legs turned to jelly. Like, I lost all feeling. I was so happy and proud. And then when I looked up, and like the entire British para table tennis team is there, like, and not just squad members, with like board members and everything, like the whole entity of British para table tennis was there, and they were all on their feet applauding. I was like, that's amazing. Like, everyone was so happy for me. And obviously we went through that emotion a fair few times that week, because I've lost count of how many medals the team won as a whole, but everyone get the same response. because we were so happy for that individual or for that doubles pairing or whoever won the medal. But for me, looking up there, I was just like, this is the best feeling ever. Like, and then 4 hours later, I went out and lost the semi-final. But in a way, I didn't. Well, of course, I cared. Like, I was in the semi-final of the World Championships and I lost. Still came home with a bronze, but I was like, oh, it was a tough one because I was like, obviously, I wanted to go and win it. Being in that position, you know, being 2 matches away from winning. But when I lost the semi-final, I was like, you know what? You should be really blooming proud of yourself because you had no right to be there. You know, the fact that someone looked at my application for a wildcard and went, yeah, we'll give him a crack at the whip. I was so fortunate. And that's just what I want to take on into this season coming is like, just go and enjoy it. Because I've went through phases of loving table tennis and hating table tennis. But because it's my job, and people do go through those phases with any job. You know, oh, I've got the best job in the world. I hate this job. I'm going to look to a competitor. I'm going to move to that position. I'm going to do this. Happens in every job. People just assume that because you're an athlete that everything's amazing and you don't have to worry about it and you always love your job because you get to play sport for a living. It's still a job. You still need to apply yourself and you still get bad days. Whether you win or lose, like, it doesn't matter. Well, obviously it does matter, but it doesn't matter to the fact that the job stays the same. So going forward into this season coming, I really want to focus on like just being that relaxed, enjoyable person because like I've went through phases of like being like super anal about like how I pack my bag in the morning, like what goes in what order. And then like for me, it just consumed everything. Like if something went wrong for whatever reason or my preparation went wrong, and I used to listen to like music in it's called the call area. So like we have to go there and hand our bats in. You're not allowed to have your bat like 20 minutes before the match. So like we'd go to the call area and I'd like put on music. I'd be like, yeah, I'm gonna fucking beat this guy. I'm gonna get stuck into him. And then I'd lose all sight of what I was there to do because I'd be too focused on being like, I'm gonna absolutely do him. It's like I need to play my game. So whereas like now, like especially after like the build up to the World Championships, I was like, I'm going to try a few different things. I'm just going to be more relaxed because I had a tournament like 3 weeks before the World Championships. I was at the Greek Open and I finished second. Ultimately, I finished second to the guy that beat me in the World Championships. So he got like 2 wins in 2 weeks. Absolute get. But I was just like approaching it in such a more relaxed way. So I was like, you know what? I'm not going to listen to music in the call area. I'm just going to chill. I'm probably going to see if I can run and grab a quick coffee before I go in the match, just because like I love coffee way too much. Like just stay relaxed, stay like in the moment, not really overthinking it. And that's something that I want to try and take moving forward. Like obviously I'm at a great position now where I'm number 10 in the world, but I don't want to be happy with that. Like I still train just as hard. Like just because I came home with a bronze medal from the World Championships in a ranking of number 10 in the world doesn't mean that I can like put my feet up and go, well, this season's going to be easy. It's going to be just as hard, if not harder, because I now need to go and prove that I deserve to be in that position. I deserve to win that medal. But everyone else in the world's doing that as well. You know what I mean? So nothing actually changes. I just need to do what works best for me. And I think moving forward, it's just being a bit more relaxed, like not taking it as seriously. And when the losses come, which they inevitably will, like every athlete loses, unless you're Floyd Mayweather, every athlete loses. So it's just being able to roll with that and being like, it's fine, it's not the end of the world. And I think I sort of suffered with that really badly in the beginning of my career. Was like every loss, I was like, I'm so bad at this game. Like how have I lost that? Like that's terrible. But whereas now I'm like, all right, okay, I can work out what I did wrong or what the opponent did right to target certain weaknesses or whatever, and I can analyse it and move on and hopefully be better for it. And I think that now, as I said, boils down to just being that much more relaxed as a person and just knowing what works well for me, and that's just being chill and going on and playing the sport I love because I love it, not because it's my job.
I love that answer, man. It's brilliant because I'm listening to you and I'm going, that is it. It just gets so when you care about something so much, and it's your passion, and it's what, and you're like your whole life revolves around it. You just want it all to go well all the time. But when you get caught up in that emotion, you forget about what you're actually, the techniques and the things like, the only thing that matters is how I hit the ball.
Yeah.
You know, not how I'm, you know, when you're thinking, right, I want to beat this person, the only way to actually do that is by focusing on things you can control in the game rather than, you know, anything else. And I think that it's just something that I've learned as well. Just try to rein in your emotions, but also just enjoy the fact you're there doing something that you love and focus on the fact that you know how to do these certain things. But to get the wild card and get to the semi final of the World Championships is pretty amazing, man. It's like, I'm listening to that, I'm going, that is some effort, by the way. Like, to put that in a context with people, it's like, could you imagine like you getting that call, that emotion, and then doing all that prep and actually showing everybody that you can get to the later stages of the competition. It's so, I mean, I want to sit and applaud you, man. It's amazing.
what I like, one of the coolest moments for me was, so in table tennis they changed the rule a couple of years ago, so there's now 2 bronze medals. So if you get to the semi-finals, you're guaranteed a medal. So me and the other guy that lost his semi-final, we're both very similarly disabled. So he has no hands, he has one leg. He's got a little bit more of an arm than me on his playing arm, and he's got a little bit more of a leg, but essentially he has no hands and he has one leg. And he's been world number 1. He's won the Paralympic Games. He's won the World Championships. He's won the European Championships. He's very well decorated as an athlete. And so we're both third at the World Championships. And we're on the podium, and he's like giving me a dig in the ribs. And I was like, yeah. And he went, it's about time you were up here. And I was like, shit. Like, I couldn't believe he just said that. Do you know what I mean? Like, he's won everything there is to win, and he's like giving me a dig and be like, oh, it's about time you were up here. And I was like, wow, that means a lot. You know, and so that was really nice to hear, that it shows that obviously other athletes have given me that respect, saying that, you know, like he works really hard, and he obviously can play a good game. Because I've struggled for a long time with just being a consistent. You know what I mean? Like, I would have tournaments where I'd beat like number 4 in the world, and in the next round lose to like number 40. Like, I was so inconsistent. Whereas now I feel like I'm able to play in a way that I can hopefully I'm not playing with fate here, but you know, I can just like grind out matches. You know, so watch this. I'll send you a text message in like 3 weeks being like, I've just bombed out in the first round of the Italian Open. You know what I mean? But like, hopefully, like I now understand the way that I need to play and what gets me over the line, or what gives me the best chance to get over the line. You know, so to hear that from someone as decorated as him was really nice, because I was like, oh, you know, maybe things are going right. Maybe I am doing the right stuff, because that comes into your mindset, I think, regardless of whatever you do, whether it's your job or whether it's just daily life. Like, am I doing the right thing here? Is this what's, you know, supposed to happen? And for him to say that, I was like, well, thanks very much, mate, because you know, you have those doubts. Everyone has those doubts, you know. And obviously, I was in one way gutted that I'd lost out in the semi-final, but obviously, you know, I should have been really proud, and I am really proud that I got that medal. So hopefully there's many more to come, because that's certainly what my targets are. You know, I'm not going to be content being number 10 in the world and having a bronze medal at the World Championships. Don't get me wrong, if that's how my career goes and that's the way it finishes, you know, then I'll know that I tried everything to improve on that. But I've got bigger targets than that, and you know, I'm going to be working every day, hopefully, to achieve them.
No, I mean, it must be incredibly motivating hearing that from somebody that's achieved that much, and knowing that you're on the same stage as him. You know, it's so, you talked about, obviously, you've got these goals in your mind. You're number 10 in the world. For people that don't know, because I don't really know, like, how where do you need to be to actually qualify for something like the Paralympics?
Good question. I don't know. So we should know by now, but the criteria has just not been released yet. So I reckon, just going off like past criteria specifications, I'm probably in a good spot. So if I can maintain number 10, or obviously, as I said, I want to be a little bit higher, I should be in a good enough spot to go. But long story short, I don't know the exact ins and out of it, just because the criteria has not been released yet. It should hopefully come out in the next couple of weeks, and then I'll be able to go, right, if I get to X, I've achieved it, I'll be there. But we just don't know. But I'm in a good spot at the moment. You know, starting off the season at 10 in the world. If I can climb a few spots, then, you know, that's obviously job done. Because when we look at goal settings, everyone always has this big goal, or you should have anyway. You should have a big goal in life that sits up here and go, right, that's what I want to be. That's the person I want to be. That's what I want to do. But the problem is a lot of people just target that big goal and go, right, I'm here. How do I get up here? And they just go from like 0 to 100. And be like, I need to be this guy. I need to be achieving this. I need to be doing that. But actually, the best way to achieve your goals is like create almost like a ladder from top to bottom. So like, right, okay, so if I want to get here, I need to take one step in this direction. And to get to this one step, this is my little target. And then I have another little target. But then what you target in the middle is you have like a slightly bigger, medium-sized goal. So you can say, right, in 12 to 18 months, I want to achieve this, or I want to have done that. But actually, that's still 12 to 18 months away. So you still need to take those little steps in order to get there. And it's basically getting that big goal and then just dicing it up into like little chunks that are actually more manageable. And then you'll find that as soon as you start ticking off one thing on that list, it's a lot easier to tick off the next thing because you get motivated from it. Or obviously in sport, some things you can't control. You know, like if my opponent goes to an event that I don't do and they outperform everyone else, obviously they can leapfrog me in the world rankings and things like that. I can't control that. But what I can control is obviously the steps that I take in order to try and be there as well. You know, so obviously set yourself a big target of who you want to be or what you want to achieve. And this is relatable like to every walk of life, not just sport. You know, set yourself that big target, have a medium-sized goal that can bridge that gap, and then have lots of little steps in between the beginning to where you are now to the middle bit. If you reach that, well done. How do you bridge that gap now between the middle-sized goal to the large goal? But then what you'll find is if you start achieving things that you want to achieve, the parameters change. And you might find that your medium-sized goal becomes something that you'd have thought would have been a lot closer to that big end goal. And then that big end goal gets bigger and changes and grows. And ultimately, you just keep growing and getting better as a person. Now, I'm not saying everyone has to go and become number one in the world, because quite frankly, that can't happen. You can't have everyone at number one in the world, but what you can have is you can have the best you. And if you're the best you, that's because you've constantly been on this growing path. And that totally comes from goal setting. Like we do it at least like dedicated goal settings 3 times a year as a team. And the para table tennis setup, it falls under the reviews bracket. We have a beginning of the year review. We have after that year's major championship, which is usually September, October. Obviously last year it was November. We have a review after that. And then we have a review at the very end of the year as well. So you're constantly going through these little reviews, but in that review we cover what's the next goal, what's the next target, how do we improve on that? And that's something you can do in all walks of life, whether that's being the best parent you can be, whether that's being targeted in your job to go for that promotion, or to, you know, move up the corporate ladder, or to start your own business, whether that's like what you're doing with the podcast. You know, you've had 80 odd podcasts, right? By this time in X amount, I want to have done 100. I want to have done 150. I want to have engaged X amount of audience. How do you do that? You set these little targets and push it out and push it out and push it out. And then before you know it, you start ticking off all these goals, and it becomes motivation to do the next one on the list. And even when you fall short, it's important to look back at the goals that you have achieved. Because I think that's often the case, especially in sport. You win. As soon as you lose, the world just crumbles and you're like, oh my goodness, like this isn't good enough. And it's so easy to forget all the good stuff you've done on the back end of that. You know, so it's important to have this record of all these little goals. You know, write them down, make a note on your phone. Like, if you don't know how to write, it's 2023. Most people don't, because we just bloody type everything these days. Do you know what I mean? Like, just find a way, get it down, physical form, and be like, look, this is what I've done that I'm really happy with. And it can be something so small. like so small, but just build on it each day, and before you know it, you'll start ticking off goals like that. Honestly,
I mean, I'm blown away by that because it's so true. Like, I think your mind doesn't even really know the difference between a small win and a big win. If you're ticking that off and you're going right, it kind of builds this confidence in yourself that you trust yourself to fall through.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's, listening to talk about that, you go, well, when you talked about when you first started playing table tennis and the process of being where you are now, it didn't happen overnight.
No.
It was a constant setting these small goals, and now you've been to the semi-finals of the World Championships. It's number 10 in the world. It's amazing how that kind of mentality will get you so far. And there's so many things that I want to pick your brain about. Like, one of the things I was thinking about before I came in here was how fast table tennis seems when you're playing it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's really intense. Like, there's not much of a gap to like almost even breathe in a sense. Like, so it got me kind of wondering, like, what did your cardio need to be like to do this game on a regular basis? Like, physically, because you play a lot.
Yeah,
The games, and they're all really intense. Like, are you needing to have like a strict sort of regimen of being like, right, I need to do X, Y, Z every day to be in the right condition for this?
So I have like being part of the full-time program and full-time setup. So I have like a dedicated strength and conditioning program. So for me, that encompasses like Monday to Friday, between sessions or before sessions or after sessions, doesn't matter. I've got a gym session to do. And obviously that involves lifting heavy things up and putting heavy things down. And then Friday is always a fun day because I get on the bike and do a dedicated cardio session, and I hate it. I absolutely hate it. Like, it's not fun. Cardio was not meant for me, right? But thankfully, playing table tennis at a higher level, you are working a lot, and so you get a little bit of natural cardio through that, So yeah, you have to be physically fit, but that you have to be physically fit to be an athlete in general, But yeah, I hate Fridays. Like, folk love Fridays because they're like, oh yeah, it's the weekend. I'm like, I need to get on the bike now for like 30 minutes, and it's the longest 30 minutes of your life. Like, and you get off and my legs are like jelly and I'm like dripping with sweat and I'm like absolutely soaked, and I'm so embarrassed at the gym because like I need to take a towel, like a towel to my cardio session and like put it on the floor because like the sweat coming off of me, like dripping onto the floor, it's minging. And then it's like I need to go and get like one of those like spray bottles and like clean it down with Dettol, because I'm like, nobody wants to use this bike after I've used it, because it's just like they may as well just put it in the bin because it's just like soaked, it's drenched with sweat. And I'm just like, right, brilliant, it's done. And then I just go sit in the changing room for like 20 minutes, just being like, I hate myself, I'm so tired, like because I'm just absolutely knackered. So like I probably spend more time getting ready after my cardio session just because I'm like absolutely exhausted, because I don't have that type of engine. Like I just don't. But thankfully, playing table tennis, you get like table tennis fit, so to speak. Like, if that makes sense, like you're fit enough to play table tennis. But it's one of the first things people say to me is like, oh, I played table tennis. I played it for like an hour last night. I was absolutely knackered. And I was like, yeah, it is tiring. Folk just think you just wave your arm about and sort of you'll hit the ball and that'll be it. Like, you're moving constantly all the time. And they're like, oh, I don't know how you do it. And I'm like, yeah, I train like maximum like 5 hours a day and I'm absolutely goosed. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, it's just, it takes its toll. But for me, it takes its toll like more on my muscles, like on my lower back, for example. Like, I'm a tall guy and the table's quite low. So I need to like bend over quite a lot to reach the ball. So for me, like, a lot of the gym work I'll do is about like keeping fit and keeping my muscles in good shape. Like, don't get me wrong, I don't think I'm in any great shape at all, but I'm in good enough shape that I can play and that I can maintain my body. Because for me, obviously, like, I also have to think long term. Like, having one leg, if my good leg, so to speak, isn't strong enough, then I'm not going to be able to walk, never mind play table tennis. Do you know what I mean? So like, that takes precedent over like a cardio session, for example. Like, I need to have a strong leg just so I can walk. And then after that, okay, now I can go play table tennis because I've got the tools, so to speak, to do that. Don't get me wrong, I'd like to look like Cristiano Ronaldo. That'd be awesome, having the six pack and all that. but you know, I'm in good enough physical condition that I can play, you know. And yes, of course, I'm trying to get better all the time, trying to get more, you know, physically fit and everything else like all athletes are doing. But for me, first and foremost, like I need to make sure that I've got the right tools just to get on with life, and that means like can I strengthen my lower back, because naturally having like really short arms with no hands on them, I need to like reach for things, and that comes from my back, like leaning into things. So I get a lot of back pain. I used to get a lot of knee pain before I went on this strength and conditioning program that was prescribed by the team, because my leg just wasn't strong enough, and I was trying to like do everything as normal. Like I'd walk every day, then I'd play table tennis, and I'd go to the gym, and it just the leg wasn't strong enough to cope with all that. So yeah, thankfully the natural cardio comes into it, and I don't need to worry about that too much. But long story short, I hate cardio.
Don't we all, man? Don't we all? Like you're preaching to the choir here. I've actually been doing cardio every day this year so far, because I know it annoys me how difficult I find it. So I want to get fit. Like I'm just like, because my thing is as well, when if I'm sitting down all day, like the gym is really the only time that I'm getting moving. So I'm trying to make that a consistent part of my life. But it just shows you, because I think that people just think that we just turn up and play, and it's like, you know,
that's the thing. It's always like, oh, you just play. Like I don't like I train way more than I play. Like and like define play, that's got like childish, just like, oh, it's fun, like connotations to it. It's like I don't play. Like I train and I compete. And you're the same. Like you train and you compete. You're not playing. You know what I mean? Like to me, play is like what kids do. So yeah, it's I get what you mean, but I've seen you on the ski erg, you know, like absolutely blitzing it, and I don't envy that at all. I hate the ski erg. I tried it once where I got like strapped into the handles, so like I couldn't move. Like even if I put my arms down, they were dragged back above me because like I was strapped into the handles. So I'm like pulling down on the ski erg, and then just like, whoa! I was like, oh, like I hated it. I hated the ski erg. I was like, just get me on the bike. I can do that. Like I can jump off whenever I want. So yeah, I don't envy you doing the ski erg at all.
Takes no prisoners, man.
It's just brutal. I mean, I think that's why they do it at like the CrossFit games. Like they do the ski ergs and stuff, don't they? 'Cause it's just absolutely brutal.
I'm a glutton for punishment. But you know, there's a couple of things going through my head here, right? Because you'd mentioned how much table tennis has like changed your life and things like that. So, and you can see that. You can see you've been around the world. You're playing the sport you love professionally. That's the dream, isn't it? Really, that's what I'm trying to do with professional football. I'm like, see if I could play professional football professionally, I'd be set. You know what I mean? So I think that in your sort of journey, if you like, how different do you think you are now compared to how you were before you started playing table tennis?
Wow, that is a really good question. I don't know, because like obviously I am a different person. Like, I've been playing the sport for 11, 12 years now, maybe. So obviously it has changed my life and shaped who I am, but like that's as equal as you saying, oh, who would you be without playing table tennis? I just don't know. Like, you know, when I started playing table tennis, I was like 17, going on 18. So I was going to change anyway as a person. You know, I was going to grow up and mature and all that goes in between. So I guess it's hard to say how it's changed me as a person, but what it has enabled me to do is gain a broad perspective on life, and I owe a lot of that to the travel, you know, and also I guess you know, like working with people that are disabled from all over the world that have such vastly different stories and the journeys that they've went through. It's given me a lot of perspective, you know, but that I can't honestly begin to tell you like how table tennis has changed my life. All I know is I'm better for it. You know, like before I played table tennis, I'd never been abroad. That's a lie. I'd been on one school trip to Germany that I did a paper round so that I could save up money so that I could go, and I did that. So that was the only other time I'd been abroad. And then now, thanks to table tennis, I think I've got like a little app on my phone. I think I've been to like 35 countries in the world or something like that. Like I would never have thought that possible. Like a wee guy for Paisley doesn't do that, especially a wee guy for Paisley that's got no hands and one leg. Do you know what I mean? Like to have played table tennis in China, that's like playing football in Brazil. Do you know what I mean? Like it's just that's a dream. You know, it's to have done that was pretty cool. But to like the countries that I've been to and the people that I've met and the places I've visited and, you know, seen cool things, I guess table tennis mainly has just given me perspective on life. So for that, I'll be forever grateful.
Brilliant. I mean, that's something I definitely want to dive into with you at one point, but I'm probably realising how much we've went on for here in my head.
That's probably my fault for just waffling on, to be honest.
But, you know, how long have we been, Paul?
Jeez, wow.
Time.
Sorry.
Time flies when you're having fun. You know, it's really amazing. You're so right about the travel. You can get these different perspectives. I mean, going to China, seeing all these different cultures as well, it's such an eye-opening thing for your own mind and where you can expand your thought process on things and have different perspectives. And you've obviously taken it all in a very positive way. But see, with all this travel and stuff like that, like, where does the wife come into this?
Well, what is it to say? Distance makes the heart grow fonder. So yeah, up until COVID, like me and Siobhan were married and like not even living together. Like, because I had to be in Sheffield. That's just where the training centre was. It's what I had to do. Siobhan had a job back here. So I'd like travel home at the weekend. With the weekends that I wasn't competing, I'd come home and we'd spend the weekend together. And I'd go back down to Sheffield. And then COVID happened. And we, like, obviously, like, I wasn't going to stay in Sheffield when there was no training and stuff. So I was like, right, I'll move back home. And then obviously, COVID wasn't just for 2 weeks. I'm going to sneeze. Excuse me. We can edit that out. So obviously, like, COVID wasn't just for 2 weeks. Like, it just kept getting longer and longer. So we were very fortunate that we ended up inheriting Siobhan's granddad's flat. So we finally had like our own base, you know, like our own place to go home, which was amazing, and we love it there. And so we sort of stayed there, and then I was like, after I forget how long I've just been obviously like in the house and not really training much, I was like, I quite like it up here now. Like, I'm gonna stay. So I had some long conversations with the coaching staff and our director, and I was like, look, I want to give it a shot at home. I want to make an effort to try and train full time at home. And obviously, as you can understand, there was a little bit of pushback because of like you're paid to be here, you need to train here. But we made it work, and we came to an agreement. Like, until my performance on the international stage suffers, I'll train at home. And it's been working ever since. But I owe that to the other players at Drumchapel Table Tennis Club, because like they come in, like if I want them, well, not if I want them, if I ask them to, and they can accommodate the time, they'll come in before work. They'll come in over lunch. They'll come in the evening. On days that we don't have like dedicated table tennis sessions, because to make the table tennis club work, we have a hall, but we have to hire it out to make money, you know. So we have other clubs that run there. There's like a boxing club, gymnastics club. There's some charitable organisations that come in. So we need to rent the hall out so that we can make money as a club, so that we can keep our club open. So like, especially during COVID, when sort of things were just getting back on their feet and you could like go out again, there was a lot of people I knew that like still weren't back at work. They were still on furlough. So I was like, want to come play table tennis all day? And they were like, yeah, absolutely. So like when the world went back to normal, so to speak, I was like, I've lost all my training partners now. Like they now have to go back to their job. So that was difficult. But what I've done is like I've kept up obviously those relationships with the folk, and they're super happy to come in like just whenever I ask them. But that's just because that's not because it's me and it's not because it's what I do. It's because that's just the culture of our club. Like everyone wants to play table tennis and everyone wants to help each other out, and there's no like hierarchy or anything. It's just like, do you want to play? Right, brilliant. there's a table, on you go. So, I guess me living up here now full time is I owe that to the drum. That's what we call it. We never really say, drum chapel tailor. We just call it the drum. So I owe it to everyone there because they're so accommodating and they train pretty much whenever I ask. And obviously that's been going well because I've got a much better life up here now. Like, I was never unhappy in Sheffield because obviously I got to hang about with all my teammates, probably played far too much PlayStation, and things like that. But now that I'm up here, and obviously I'm with Siobhan and I get to see my family and like my nieces and nephews and hang out with them and like see my friends and, go out for like a nice meal or whatever, like to be able to come home and home isn't 5 hours away anymore. It's 20 minutes in the car or whatever, and just being able to relax. For that, like that's been a massive change for me because I said for 5 years I was down in Sheffield, just head down, go to training, come back, play a bit of PlayStation, go to bed, go to training, and just rinse and repeat. So now to be at home, like I'm actually like in a way grateful for COVID because like that changed it, as awful as it was, and don't get me wrong, it wasn't fun. Like no one enjoyed COVID, but it was like it's changed my life for the better. Like through the result of it, I've been able to now actually see my wife and live together. Like who'd have thought that? Do you know what I mean? So like things like that it's been great for me. So when COVID hit, obviously we didn't know what was going to happen. No one did, and we couldn't have envisioned life being the way it was for so long. But for me, it's worked out really good, and I think because of that, I've got a much happier life now, and my work-life balance is probably perfect for me. It's what I need, and like that shows in the results of my table tennis. Like I'm playing better. That's not to say I wouldn't have improved in Sheffield. Like we don't know that, but I know as a person, I'm happier for it. So like that's the real win,
That's brilliant, man. I mean, it's to juggle all that is. I mean, I would struggle to juggle one of those things. Never mind all the things you've got going on. It's like because it's interesting. This seems to be something that is coming up more as I'm doing podcasts when I talk about disability. Because when I was, I don't know, I wouldn't say, I'll say a few years younger than I am now, right? There was quite a tendency to, when it came to like relationships and things like that, there was always a tendency to pretend you were more able than you were, if you know what I mean. Like I would have a Tinder profile and it would be like, there would be no sign of me being in a wheelchair in that Tinder profile. And then you'd meet them and they'd be like, you didn't mention the whole chair thing.
Yeah.
And I've had like people with disabilities message me and ask me like, how did you first sort of feel comfortable enough for yourself to express to somebody, that you wanted to be in a relationship with them or things like that? Because it's there's so many people that will just kind of look at you and before you even can say a word, will just sort of write you off in that regard because of the disability. So when I'm talking to somebody like you that's not only performed at such a high level athletically, but also is married, there will be people with disability listening to this that will go, what did he do? Like, what did they say to her? Like, how did that go about? And I think the biggest thing that I realised for myself is just being comfortable with yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, so obviously when you have a very severe physical disability like ourselves, like you can't hide it, but I can totally understand that you would want to at some point try because you're like, I want this person, whether it's obviously on Tinder or whatever. Be careful with that, by the way, because that's how I met my wife. So be careful when you swipe right because you never know how it's going to end up, right? So when you're on these like apps and all that, or like obviously, if you're, God forbid, chatting to someone in the real world, you know what I mean? Daunting as it is, I can see what you mean. Like you try and be like, I'm not really that disabled, so you can kind of hide it. And I reckon probably everyone with a severe disability has done that at some point. They've tried to hide it because, and it's probably not through anything else other than, I want them to see me for me. But actually, once you realise that seeing you for you is seeing your disability, it's part of you. You can't change it. It's not like I could, like dye my beard or shave it off. I'd still be the same person. I'd just look more like a thumb if I shaved it off, because like this hides my chins. Do you know what I mean? So it's the disability is part of you, and sometimes it can be hard to accept that, especially when, you know, like just being a teenager in general is hard enough. Everyone remembers what it was like, but when you obviously want to have relationships and things like that, it can be difficult when you're disabled, you know, and everyone goes through rejection, and when you get rejected, like it always comes into your mind like, is this because of my disability? Chances are it wasn't. Like, it's probably just because you don't click with that person. And even if it was because of your disability, then you wouldn't want to be with them anyway, would you? Like, but it's easy to say that now, like as a married man, I'm 28, like looking back going, that's fine. But when you're a teenager, obviously your emotions do hit very hard when you're a teenager, you know, and things like that. But of course it comes into your mind, you're like, have I been knocked back here because I've got no hands or whatever. Like, so I remember messaging Siobhan for the first time, because we met on Tinder. She's probably going to hate that that's all over the internet now, but we met on Tinder, and I remember messaging her for the first time. I was like, oh, by the way, like, just to let you know, before we meet up tomorrow or whenever it was, like, I was like, oh, before we meet up tomorrow, I've got no hands and I've only got one leg. She's like, I'm not blind. Like, I've seen your profile. Like, I can see that. And I was like, I don't even know why I said it. Do you know what I mean? Because I was like, it was on my profile, like pictures of me. I'm in shorts and t-shirts. I'm doing whatever. You know, like, I was like, of course she knows you've got no hands and one leg. So why have you said that, you absolute plum? You know what I mean? But it does come into your mind, like when you have a very severe physical disability, is like, maybe they should know. It's like, but the right person won't care. You know what I mean? Just as equally as like the wrong person probably won't care either. It's just they'll not want to be with you for, like, you just don't click, or you don't get along, you don't have things in common. It's probably got nothing to do with your disability. So Siobhan tells me, well, doesn't tell me anymore, but she told me a funny story of when she first was going to introduce me to her family. So she got a picture of me on her phone and like showed her mum and dad, and her dad like gasped, and she's like, oh, Dad, come on, don't. Like, what? She's like, are you honestly dating a guy like that? And she's like, Dad, come on, you can't say that. She's like, Siobhan, he's fucking bald. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, that was his first response. That was his first response, was like, he's bald. Like, they just didn't, obviously they don't care that I'm disabled either. But I was like, oh, that's quite good actually. Do you know what I mean? That's the people that I want in my life, is people that are gonna just see me for me. And to this day, like, he still absolutely like rips me for being bald. Like, 'cause he's clinging on. He's got about like 3 hairs left himself, but he's clinging on. Like, good on him. So I still get it, because he's got more hair than me. So yeah, that was the first thing he was like, oh, he's bald. You know what I mean? So it's the right person was always going to be like that. They were always going to see that and see me for me. And you know, I think that crosses everybody's mind, not whether you've got a disability or not. Like, you know, because everyone, as I said, everyone gets rejected. So if you get rejected, is it like, oh, is it because of my dress sense? Is it because of my hair? Is it because I said this? Like, you probably just didn't click, you know. But everyone has those thoughts of when they're rejected. I think just when you're disabled, they can quite easily get amplified, because you start thinking, going, is this because of my disability? Is this because I can't do this? Is this because these things would be a challenge? It's probably not, but I know firsthand it can feel like it is, and it can feel like the bloody end of the world, and you're like, oh goodness me, like, because of my disability I'm never going to have this, or I'm never going to do that. It's like, you will, just find the right person. Easier said than done, I know, but like, for disabled people that listen to this, you'll be fine. You'll be all right.
No, I love it, mate. I love it. Well, see, because that's exactly kind of what I was looking for there. That's what people need to hear more. And I just realised recently how that's not really something I speak about much in the podcast. And I'm trying to make it more of a thing, because it's, when it comes to that sort of, it was very daunting for me as a young man, and I feel like if I was able to hear two disabled guys talking about that, it would maybe make me feel more comfortable with the approach of it all. I mean, of course now I'm totally fine. I'm completely handsome. It's totally, you know what I mean?
And so, modest as well, obviously.
Of course, I've got a full head of hair and all that. It's great. But you know, it takes time to get there, and you can, and it just helps people know that we can talk about it. But to kind of give you a sort of wrap up question, if you like, at the start of this conversation, you mentioned how if one person listens to this and takes up table tennis because of it, then it's mission accomplished. And we spoke about the kind of how table tennis maybe isn't necessarily the most mainstream sport compared to like football and stuff like that. But there was a time in your life where it may have been easier for you socially or whatever, or just in any sort of dynamic, just to go, I could just keep playing football and leave the table tennis, right? And so I guess my question would be, what would your advice be to somebody that maybe is thinking about taking up a different sport, whether it be table tennis or any other sport that's not necessarily in the public eye as much as a football or whatever, and they're thinking about it, but they're a bit unsure in terms of how it would affect them in the sort of social dynamics and stuff like that. Like taking that step to be like, no, I'd actually rather pursue this than just fall into the crowd type of thing.
I mean, I'm gonna slightly change your question, and I'm gonna take sport out of it, right? If you want to pursue anything, as you said, whether it's a different sport, but it can be a different hobby, it can be a different passion. You know, if you want to go and do clay pottery classes, but you're a young teenage boy, and your friends will take the mick out of you for going doing pottery classes, go and do the pottery class. Like, go and enjoy it. If you want to take up oil painting, if you want to start cooking, if you want to do anything, go and do it. Like, if someone is gonna, well, your friends will always take the mick out of you, right? But as long as they're actually your friends, they will support you on the back end of it. Like, like, you know what it's like, soon as your friend gets a new haircut, you're like, did you actually pay money for that? But like, that's just what happens, especially in Scotland. Like, that's what happens, right? But you know they'll support you and go, I'm only getting you look good, right? If you want to do anything, as I said, like clay pottery classes, oil painting, cooking, play table tennis, try a new sport, try a new hobby, bloody start crochet. I don't care. Just do it. Just like pick it up, give it a go, and see if you like it. Do it some more. Obviously, my goal in life is to get to the Paralympic Games and to win a medal for Paralympics GB. But you need to find your own Paralympic Games. You know what I mean? So, and that doesn't mean that you have to go and be the best in the world and bring home fancy shiny medals. It just means you have to go and find the one thing that drives you, that is your passion, that makes you want to go, I want to get better at this and I want to do more of it because I enjoy it. It makes me happy. It brings me a lot of fun. It puts me in a position where I get to meet people that are like-minded. We can talk about similar things. You'll meet new friends. You know, chances are, if you pick up a new hobby or passion, chances are you'll travel with it. And that doesn't mean like you get to go to, you know, the Far East, like Japan or America or in the Far West. Like that doesn't mean you get to do that. But what if you get to go to London for a weekend and have a fancy cooking class or something like that? Do you know what I mean? Like that's an experience you would never have had if you just went, I don't know if I want to do the cooking, because what if so and so like takes a mick out of me, or what if they say it's weird or they don't support it? Well, then screw them. Go and do what you want to do. Like, as I said, find your own Paralympic Games. Find something that you want to strive for. Do that new hobby. Do the thing that you're uneasy about. Do you know what I mean? Because if you don't take that first step, then you'll never know if you enjoyed it. Do you know what I mean? So by all means, if you don't like it, then find something else. Like, don't feel like you have to do, oh, right, I really want to go and become an oil painter. I tried oil painting. Actually, I didn't enjoy it, but I need to stick with it now because I told everyone I was going to become an oil painter. Well, what does it matter if you don't like it? If you don't like it, move on. But you need to try it. You need to try new things. So yeah, I think if there's something that's a burning desire within you, give it a go. And if it is a burning desire, you probably know you already like it. But enjoy the process of it. Don't give up because you're not very good at the beginning, because nobody was good at the beginning. You have to keep going. But ultimately, if you're not enjoying it, move on. Move on to something new. Find something that you want to be a part of, something that you want to do every day. for me, I'm a weird guy that enjoys playing table tennis, right? So that's what I'm going to do every day, and I would do it every day, even if it wasn't my job. But please don't stop paying me, because I've got bills.
Very well put, Pat. And listen, thank you so much. I've taken a lot from what you said here, and I would love to have you back on at any point. I hope that next time we talk, you've been to the Paralympics, and we can, and my introduction at the start can be reality. But,
yeah, that'd be class.
But listen, regardless of what happens, what you've achieved to this point is nothing short of remarkable, and the way your whole attitude and the way that you think about life will definitely help other people listening to this. So I really appreciate you coming on and speaking the way that you have.
No, thanks for having me, mate. I've really enjoyed it.